Brianna Ghey, a 16-year-old proud transgender woman, hopped on a bus to meet up with two friends. Little did she know she was walking into a trap. 3 people walked into the local park and only 2 came out alive. But who is telling the truth and who was wielding the knife? Hi everyone and welcome back to Partners in Crime. My name is Poppy.
And I'm Roger.
And as always, we are here to talk about a true crime case that I've researched and Roger knows nothing about. He's here to give his opinion and thoughts and questions as we go through the case. So, you would have heard of this case. I'm sure of it.
She's sure of it.
I'm sure.
Certain.
If you haven't, where have you been?
Under a rock.
Like, it's just obscene. It's a UK case.
Okay.
And it is a current case.
Okay.
As we like to do. But it is resolved. So stay tuned.
Answers are coming.
Answers, yes, exactly. This story follows a young woman called Brianna Ghey. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yes, okay. She was 16 years old and lived in Birchwood, which is nearby Warrington in the UK. It's up north. Brianna was born male but transitioned to female at the age of 14 and started taking hormones at the age of 15. So fairly early on in her transitioning process. Her parents Esther Ghey and Peter Spooner were fully supportive of her transition and were in fact so proud of her for being who she truly wanted to be. Even though Brianna suffered from anxiety and also an eating disorder, she was starting to build a TikTok following, having over 30,000 followers, where she, tried on outfits, she lip synced to songs, performed dances, all that fun stuff on TikTok. Yeah. But she was really kind of building up a following. Brianna went to Birchwood High School and was in year 11. In October 2022, a new girl, Scarlett Jenkinson, 15 years old, transferred to Brianna's school from another local school, Colchester High School. Scarlett and Brianna quickly became friends and would sometimes hang out after school at the shops or McDonald's, the good hangout spots. They first met in the inclusion rooms at school. Brianna was often there for one-to-one tuition as she was diagnosed with ADHD and autism. And Scarlett was there after being transferred because her timetable hadn't been finalised. So she kind of had to also have this one-to-one kind of tuition. Scarlett was described as quiet, shy and polite and generally a typical teenage girl. She wanted to spend a lot of time in her room playing video games with friends. And one friend in particular was Eddie Ratcliffe. Eddie Ratcliffe was also 15 and was considered very smart and had dreams of going to university and training to become a microbiologist. Eddie goes to Scarlett's old school and they've known each other since they were 11 years old. They describe themselves as frenemies at first. Do you know what frenemies is?
Yeah, a friend that's also an enemy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Calling each other weird. But after WhatsApping and playing video games, they became really good friends. Even after Scarlett transferred schools, they remained good friends. He was a keen kickboxer who took part in the World Championships in 2018, and he came second.
Wow, blimey, okay.
So it's really quite impressive. Yeah. Scarlett messaged Brianna asking whether she wanted to hang out on Saturday. Brianna said yes, and they made a plan from there. So at 9:25 a.m. on Saturday the 11th of February 2023, Scarlett messaged Brianna telling her to get the number 28 bus from her home in Birchwood to Colchester. Scarlett had also invited Eddie to join them. Eddie lived in Lee. His mum agreed to give him a lift, which only takes about 15 minutes. So they're all in pretty close proximity to each other. His mum dropped him off at Sainsbury's and he walked to Scarlett's house at around 12:45 p.m. At the same time, Brianna was leaving her house to catch the bus. She messaged her mum saying what she was doing and headed straight to the bus stop. At 12:56 p.m, Scarlett and Eddie walked back to Sainsbury's to get a meal deal, consisting of just a sandwich and a drink. They had like a Coke and a Dr. Pepper or something.
Just the two of them.
Just the two of them, yeah. Brianna hasn't got there yet.
Oh, right, okay. At what time, sorry?
12:56.
Right.
At 1:37 p.m, Brianna hopped on the number 28 bus as instructed and made her way to Colchester. She arrived at 1:53 p.m. and met up with Scarlett and Eddie. They decided to walk to Colchester Linear Park as Scarlett wanted to smoke some weed in a little hidden spot. They were walking around the park while Scarlett was messaging her drug dealer. However, things quickly took a turn, and at 3:13 p.m, a dog walker named Catherine Vise called 999, reporting that someone was seriously injured in the park and that she'd seen the attackers run away. She told the operator, "I think she's been attacked severely. Her face, her back, she may have even been stabbed. There's blood coming out of her back. I'm just going to try and stop people coming down here because you wouldn't. Oh my God." Poor Brianna was found lying face down on the floor, covered in blood and not moving. It took 10 minutes for the first police officer, PC Andrew Chadwick, to arrive, and he desperately tried to save Brianna by giving CPR. Paramedics arrived a few minutes later and the air ambulance also landed, but it was too late, and at 4:02 p.m, Brianna succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. It was revealed she had been stabbed 28 times, all over her neck, back and chest.
That's quite...
28 times.
That's done with intent, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not a crime of passion.
No,
that's not...
Or like someone, like a drug deal gone bad or something. That's... Yeah, that's intent.
Yeah.
Well, you'd think anyway.
That's it. So, why has Brianna suddenly died in such a horrific way, only 2 hours after arriving in Colchester? Was there a big argument? Was there a stranger attack? I doubt it. Well, it didn't take long for the police to figure it out.
No.
On the 12th of February at 4:59 p.m, a woman called the police on 101, which is the UK's non-emergency number. It was Scarlett's mum, Emma. She rang to tell them her daughter had just informed her that she was with Brianna on the day she died. Scarlett had told her that she saw Brianna for like 15 minutes, but claimed that Brianna had ditched them to meet some lad from Manchester. At this point, Brianna's death had been made public and was all over the news. Hundreds of people were mourning the loss of Brianna and started posting condolences on social media, including Scarlett, who wrote on Snapchat at 6:25 p.m. with a photo, "Rest in peace. Brianna was one of the best people I've ever met and such an amazing friend. It's so fucking sickening what got done to her."
That was the next day?
That was the next day, early evening time. While Eddie was at home, he was online on the Crown Prosecution Service website looking at Data Protection Act offences and penalties for supplying or withholding information.
Okay. Bit weird.
Strange.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite strange for a 16-year-old to be on the 15-year-old to be on the CPS website.
I wouldn't have even known that existed.
Well, no.
But later that evening, simultaneously at 7:32 p.m, Scarlett and Eddie were both arrested at their home addresses on suspicion of murder. Scarlett very calmly asked the arresting officer, "Am I a suspect as I was the last person to see her alive?" And when Eddie was being arrested, all he said was, "I can explain."
Okay.
Suspicious.
I mean, yeah, you usually are
Eddie.
a suspect if you're the last... Well, yeah, I mean, that. But you usually are a suspect if you're the last person to see someone alive.
Yeah, they're going to look into you straight away.
Yeah.
Like, that's a given. Whether, guilty or not,
Yeah.
you're going to be the first to be looked into.
Absolutely.
So now police had 2 suspects arrested for the murder. They needed to start putting together the evidence in the hopes of charging them and getting this case going.
Mm-hmm.
Searches were conducted at the defendants' home addresses and their mobile phones were seized by detectives for telecoms analysis. A handwritten note detailing their plan to kill Brianna was found during a search of Scarlett's bedroom. It was titled Saturday, the 11th of February, 2023. Victim, Brianna Ghey. That was the title.
Wow.
So
okay.
subtle. It went, literally, it went on to describe the plan. Go to the pipe/tunnel area. I say code word to Eddie. He stabs her in the back as I stab her in the stomach. Eddie drags the body into the area. We both cover up the area with logs, etc.
Right.
So that was the plan.
Okay. That's pretty dark, isn't it? Very dark behaviour. I mean, pre-planned. I mean, this is clearly already looking like, a planned murder.
Yeah, absolutely. They found a black notebook where she made notes on several infamous serial killers, such as Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy, listing their characteristics and how many people they've killed, etc. There was also an ominous list of 5 people's initials written under the heading, People That Need to Go. She had even made notes of her co-defendant, Eddie, describing him as someone that doesn't have many or no emotions, good sense of humour, very, very smart, genius level, not sociable, socially awkward, gets anxious, trustworthy, and sociopath.
Right, okay. So she's done her own psychological assessment of her
she likes
murder buddy.
She likes making notes of people. That's her thing. They had found her clothes she was wearing that day, according to the CCTV, and there was no obvious signs of blood on them, at all.
Surprising.
Yeah, very surprising, considering 28 times.
Yeah.
That Brianna was stabbed.
And this is only a few days after
this is
the incident.
So the next day she was arrested. So after that, there wouldn't have been any interfering with the clothes, unless obviously the parents washed them or anything like that.
Yeah.
A hunting knife believed to be the murder weapon was also recovered from Eddie's bedroom, along with blood-soaked clothes. These were later confirmed to have Brianna's blood on them. But the most damning evidence was the hundreds of deleted messages off of their phones that were recovered. Amongst talking about normal teenage things like their love lives, Eddie was described as a little socially inept and would ask Scarlett for advice about a girl that he liked, etc. They would also discuss things like torture and murder and even about killing other children. Scarlett boasted, I love watching torture vids, real ones on the dark web. She had actually downloaded a special web browser in order for her to access the dark web.
Right.
So she was in it.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I don't
crazy.
even know.
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
No, but she did. I don't know how.
As a 15, I mean, there's probably a YouTube video out there
or
somewhere.
A TikTok, probably.
Yeah, probably.
In the trial, prosecution described them as if the pair had lived in a cocooned world of dark fantasies, Eddie indulging Scarlett's bloodlust and fascination for torture and death. In a chilling series of messages between Eddie and Scarlett, they discussed killing up to 5 children. One boy came to their attention because Scarlett hated him and thought he would be an easy kill. Another was targeted after they referred to him as a nonce, while another was mentioned as Eddie began to fear that he was getting close to the girl he had feelings for. Literally. Scarlett even claimed to have killed 2 people already, with Eddie responding with, "You are 1 kill away from being a serial killer," and Scarlett saying, "Fuck yes, lol."
Christ.
So yeah.
Well, they were clearly in the the mindset.
They were in it,
right?
Yeah. Brianna first popped up in their messages on the 15th of December 2022, where Scarlett expressed her true feelings about Brianna. She said, "I'm obsessed with someone. Also, she has a dick." Scarlett continued expressing her interest in Brianna. She said, Because the majority of people aren't trans, it's like going to a funeral and one person wears pink. You are going to be fascinated by the difference. After sharing some pictures of Brianna with him, Eddie asked, "Is it a femboy or a tranny?" And referring to Brianna as it is just gross.
Right. Yeah. Well, as it.
Yeah.
They were saying it. Right.
Is it a femboy or a tranny?
Oh, I see. Sorry.
It's just disgusting.
No, it's horrible.
She told...
Well, it's dehumanising, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. She told Eddie that Brianna was transgender and that she was pretty and attractive. This was around 6 weeks after Scarlett joined the school and therefore met Brianna.
Yeah.
But by the new year, Scarlett's obsession with Brianna turned dark. Shockingly, police learned through their texts that Scarlett had in fact tried to kill Brianna before. In messages to Eddie, she said, "You know that girl I mentioned, Brianna? I'm still trying to kill her, and the easiest way is pill overdose. Please," how she words this is a bit weird. Let me start again. "You know that girl I mentioned, Brianna? I'm still trying to kill her, and the easiest way is pill overdose, please. People already know she is depressed and shit, so nobody would get sus. But for some reason, she has a high tolerance. Like I gave her some today that should have been enough to kill her." Brianna's mother confirmed this as she recalls Brianna being very ill around this time, throwing up a lot and screaming in so much pain that she feared she might die. Later that same evening, Scarlett went on to confirm the poisoning even more by messaging Eddie. "Brianna is still ill. Those tablets I gave her might slowly be killing her." But obviously we know this was unsuccessful. Eddie suggested using an ibuprofen gel paste or sodium hydroxide, which could be added to Brianna's drink next time. So that's nice and helpful.
God, how do these kids know? Like, the fuck?
I have no idea. If
guess,
you're into that, though,
yeah,
you're going to research it.
Yeah.
Like anything else you could be interested in, you're going to research about it.
Yeah.
It's gross. By the end of January 2023, their plans were becoming more detailed and concrete. The discussions to kill the children continued, and before Brianna became the ultimate target, another boy had been the focus. It was the boy that Eddie didn't like because of his love interest.
Right.
Eddie suggested they could build a noose to make it look as though the boy had killed himself. Scarlett responded, "Nah, just stab him. Slit his throat and stab his back."
Jesus.
Like, so casual. Like, literally, nah, just stab him.
Yeah, right. I mean, it sounds like they've gone from attempting to be inconspicuous by, like, trying to poison her to
just
now
outright
stab, kill.
Yeah.
You know?
They were planning on using the knife Eddie bought on holiday in Bulgaria. Scarlett even set up a fake Instagram account in a bid to lure the boy out for the proposed killing. But after he blocked the account, her attention turned back to Brianna. "If we can't get him tomorrow, we can kill Brianna," Scarlett said. Eddie replied, "Yeah, it'll be easier, and I want to see if it will scream like a man or a girl."
God.
Horrible, horrible person.
I mean, this is some quite deep-rooted, like, hate, right? It's
yeah,
not
like
just
transphobia. It's awful, isn't
yeah.
it? He clearly has, like, a problem.
An issue. Yeah,
with transgender people. However, their plan failed again with the boy, and so Scarlett messaged Brianna asking to meet up on Saturday the 28th of January. Scarlett messaged Eddie. She's agreed to come to Culture tomorrow. "So I bring my knife?" Eddie asked. "Yes. Is it definitely sharp enough, by the way?" she replied. It's just so casual. It's just trippy to, like, read this. However, Brianna last minute cancelled the meetup as she had a family meal she needed to attend. She unknowingly avoided being attacked that day. But as we know, only 2 weeks later, she would be dead. Scarlett and Eddie had a dry run of their plan instead on the 28th of January.
Oh, right, okay. Well, they went out
to the park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Using CCTV, phone records and eyewitness accounts, officers were able to build up a timeline of the movements of Brianna and her killers before and after she was murdered. On the day of the murder, several CCTV cameras caught Scarlett and Eddie walking around, going into Sainsbury's and buying their meal deals, and then waiting at the bus stop for Brianna. The drinks they bought from Sainsbury's, remember the Coke and the Dr. Pepper, they were actually found nearby Brianna's body, which was a pretty concrete way of linking them to where she was.
Like where they were, yeah.
The last known footage of the three of them was at 2:02 p.m, which showed them walking towards the Colchester Linear Park. It was revealed that Scarlett actually messaged Brianna before she had got on the bus, telling her to get a child single ticket.
Right. What, does that have any relevance?
So, because why would she get a single ticket is the point.
Yeah.
She would get a return.
Sure.
So obviously this probably didn't worry Brianna at the time. She was probably just like, okay, weirdo.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it's actually just very chilling.
Right,
Because that's Scarlett kind of telling her, like, you're not going to be returning.
Yeah. In a way.
Isn't that so horrible?
I wonder if that was... Well, I guess it must have been purposeful. Why would you even say it, right?
I don't know why.
You wouldn't say it unless, you had
Trying
the
to
intention
kind
that
of-
she's not going to return, right?
But why did she tell her? Like, why does it matter if she
It
gets
is
a
weird.
return?
That's very strange.
I think it's just a power control thing. She's
Maybe.
I don't know. It's
That's the
so
only thing I
weird.
could put it down to, because, like, I just don't know why you would do that. Because at the end of the day, you could risk that,
Putting her off coming.
Yeah, she might
Unless
be like...
maybe she was having doubts.
Scarlett was having doubts that she wouldn't come.
About the whole plan and trying to get her to not come.
Maybe.
I doubt
suppose
it,
it's
but that's
possible,
a
but we don't, we
possibility.
Don't know.
Despite them being together, phone records show that Brianna and Scarlett were messaging each other on Snapchat when they were together.
Right. What, like when they were walking around together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Girl, I'ma wait where I am until we have drugs, lol. Brianna. That's what Scarlett said to Brianna.
All right.
And then Brianna told Scarlett, I'm too anxious, due to them kind of waiting for the drugs. According to phone records, Scarlett spent 45 minutes messaging this drug dealer, but it was later found out that Scarlett had in fact created this fake Snapchat account for her to message as a decoy, or possibly to create a drug deal gone wrong story later.
Yeah.
The account his name was Nathan, but he was fake.
Right.
Brianna then began to suspect something was wrong. She was just getting a weird vibe. She messaged another friend describing Scarlett as being so weird, and I think she was pretending to have a drug dealer.
Right.
And I don't know if she was saying that because it was taking
so
a while for it to come into fruition.
I can imagine that being the case, right?
Yeah.
But I think you'd con onto that if you were sat down in a park for like 45 minutes. I mean, drug dealers, they want to do the deal and bugger off, right?
They want a quick transaction, quick money. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just, it doesn't surprise me that she grew suspicious.
Exactly. Scarlett and Eddie were both seen on a dash cam at 3:15 p.m. heading back towards Scarlett's home.
Okay.
Brianna was nowhere to be seen. 5 minutes later, Eddie is seen walking to a bus stop, wiping his hands that appear to be red. Eddie arrived home at 4:04 p.m., 2 minutes after Brianna was declared dead. At 4:28 p.m., Eddie messaged Scarlett for the first time since the attack. He said, "So, how's your cat?"
Yeah. Okay.
Scarlett replied, "Good lol, how's yours?"
I assume that's code.
And Eddie replied, "It keeps trying to purr." So that's what I thought. I was like, is this a kind of code for something, or are they just trying to act normal as if everything's fine, we weren't just out murdering somebody?
No, I think surely that's code.
It's random. That hasn't been revealed. That hasn't.
Like whether they know that or not.
Yeah.
It must be. It must be code.
I think they say, "Oh, we'll just talking normal." Like we have these kinds of conversations, like these random conversations.
Yeah.
That's how we talk.
Okay.
But Eddie made internet searches at 4:50 p.m. the same day, including get help with anxiety, fear, or panic, breathing exercises for stress, and 10 stress busters. So he was clearly starting to panic. Maybe now the adrenaline had died down, he began realising what had happened. Scarlett messaged Eddie telling him her brother said a girl had been stabbed in the park. Holy crap, Eddie replied. At 8:04 p.m, Scarlett watched a video of Brianna on Snapchat. And the last exchange they had on the 11th was Scarlett messaging Eddie asking, "Do you have anxiety about getting caught?" With him replying, "Probably." And Scarlett saying, "You're not going to get caught, don't worry. Police are shite here."
Okay.
Literally.
Well done, you.
They just have no concept of like what
Like, well,
they're
guilt,
doing, what
really.
they've done.
Yeah.
They just, it's like just not registering to them like what they've truly done.
No, right.
So it feels like Scarlett really wasn't that worried about what they had done or about the police potentially catching them, which obviously we know they do. Hours after Brianna's murder, Eddie now seemed to have calmed down as he was back onto the subject of his love interest. He was asking Scarlett for advice on what message to send this girl as Valentine's Day was approaching, with Scarlett encouraging him that now is the time to ask her out, as if they hadn't just killed somebody.
Yeah, right.
You know.
I mean, God, could you imagine, like, if they were, like, free for longer after the killing, and then you were the girl that ended up going out with him for like a week or whatever?
Yeah,
That'd be fucking horrible.
Well,
and scary as well.
I haven't really mentioned this in the case, in the story, because it wasn't really relevant, but Scarlett has a boyfriend.
Right.
Or I don't know. Obviously he's never named.
No.
Anything. I imagine they're not together anymore, but she
shit.
does actually have a boyfriend throughout this whole thing. But yeah, he's like not relevant.
Blimey.
And finally, on the 12th, after Scarlett's mum called the police regarding Scarlett being with Brianna, etc., Scarlett messaged Eddie at 5:52 p.m, giving him the heads up. "I haven't gone station, but my mum phoned police. Make sure story adds up. Say to police everything. We met Brianna at 1:30, walked to Linear and sat and chilled on the bench. And then Brianna looked at her phone and said she was going to meet some lad and walked off. Then, less than 2 hours later, they were arrested."
Yeah. Okay.
So now they have both been arrested and separately being interviewed by investigators.
Yeah.
During their initial interviews, both defendants vehemently denied any involvement in Brianna's death. But when the messages that they thought were irrecoverable, that's hard to say, were put to them, they began to turn on each other. Shock. How Eddie explained it was, he met Brianna for the first time on the day of the murder, and they hardly exchanged a word. "I don't tend to speak to people until I get used to them," he said. Eddie claimed he was admiring trees and relieving himself in the woods when Scarlett began stabbing Brianna, and claimed he played no part in the frenzied attack. He said the blood on his hands, shoes and coat was the result of him checking on the victim. But regardless of them turning on each other, police knew they had enough evidence to continue with the case, and both Scarlett and Eddie pleaded not guilty, and therefore the case was going to trial.
Yeah.
So, once the story broke in the news and on social media, a lot of people, especially people within the LGBTQ+ community, were outraged with this attack, deeming it a hate crime against trans people. Mm-hmm. Police were very quick to rule this out as a motive.
Right.
They always are.
I mean, from what you've said, though, so far, obviously we probably know, from what you've researched and told me now, we probably know more than what most people did at the time. But seemingly, it's a hate crime, right? Seemingly.
Yeah.
Or at least there are elements of hate within them that has probably perpetuated the crime.
I mean, there's a high chance of it being a hate crime when it's two straight people
Yeah.
attacking someone of that community, surely. and killing someone of that community.
I
It's
guess
more likely than not it could be
I
a
suppose,
hate crime.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? It doesn't mean that's it.
Definitely. But
there's a higher chance of it being that.
Yeah.
But the police were just like, no. They argued that the pair wanted to kill someone, and Brianna was simply unlucky enough to be in their crossfire. A vulnerable person most accessible to them. They made this argument based on the fact that they had targeted other people before Brianna who weren't trans, but one of them was gay.
Right, okay.
So what do you guys think? Do you think this, would class as a hate crime from what you know so far? Because Scarlett's obsession with Brianna started with her fascination in her being trans.
Yeah.
If you remember.
Right. Yeah.
And Eddie was the only one who made the derogative comments, referring to her as it. Wanted to know whether she screams like a man or a woman.
Yeah.
So her being trans was definitely at the forefront of their kind of mind and conversation.
Yeah. It's definitely something that they were thinking about. It's not like, they weren't, well, I don't know why they were killing her, but they, it was at the forefront. It was at the, like you say, it was at the forefront of their thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let us know what you think. As the two defendants were in custody, they were both seen by psychiatrists. It was first suggested that Scarlett had traits of autism and ADHD, which was later changed to her being diagnosed with a severe form of conduct dissocial disorder. And one of the symptoms of this is having no empathy.
Okay.
Eddie was diagnosed with autism, selective mutism, and anxiety. So just to be clear, that the two of them didn't know they had these before being arrested. Right. This is new information to them and everyone else.
Yeah, okay.
As Eddie was being interviewed by the police and when he was having meetings with his lawyer, he gradually became more and more mute and was incapable of speaking. It wasn't refusing to speak, he was incapable of speaking. Yeah. Okay. The difference.
I can understand how, if he already had anxiety and selective mutism, how that situation would make you more anxious and more, turning inward, I suppose.
To to the most sort of thing, to the extreme, absolutely. So this is the reason why the trial took so long to happen. It delayed things so much as they couldn't get much out of him. Yeah. It was a much longer process. He would talk to his mum and would communicate through typing on a laptop or a tablet or whatever. This is how he had to give evidence in court, through typing on a laptop, which is the first time this has ever had to happen.
All right.
Yeah. He would be asked questions, then he would type the response, which would then be shown on TV screens in court and then read out by an intermediary. Some people were not convinced Eddie's mutism was entirely involuntary and suspect it may be a tactic to elicit sympathy and avoid responsibility, though some think it may be the genuine result of the trauma of his involvement in the murder. I think, similarly to what you were saying, it's more to do with his environment, kind of being locked up, interviewed by lots of authoritative people, taken away from his home, parents and comforts. And I think he was in a state of shock and he shut down a little bit.
I think that's a pretty reasonable
because
take.
I feel like I do that when I feel overwhelmed with an emotion. I go quiet because I'm trying to process and trying to figure it out, sort of thing. And obviously that's just to a next level extreme, of course. Eddie's one. Due to both of their diagnoses and their young age, the courts had to ensure they had the correct support throughout the trial, so they knew what was going on, and if they needed breaks, they were allowed them. On the 1st of December 2023 is when the trial officially began at Manchester Crown Court. The prosecution is led by Deanna Heer and Cheryl Mottram. Scarlett is represented by Richard Pratt and Sarah Holt, while Eddie is represented by Richard Littler and Stephen Swift. Scarlett gave evidence behind a screen. This was in order to avoid distraction, and so Scarlett can give her best evidence. Okay. Richard Pratt started examining Scarlett first. She admits She enjoys watching violent stuff like murder and torture, but that they did not make her want to torture or kill people. Scarlett tells the court that she and Eddie began discussing dark materials in November last year, so 2022. He seemed to have similar interests, that's why I started to open up to him about it. I would share the sort of dark fantasies that I would have. He would go along with it. I would talk to him about it, and then he seemed to like that sort of stuff as well and would text back about it. Hence how that conversation started, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Scarlett went on to deny ever poisoning anyone, and even though she and Brianna were friends and she found her attractive, she was not obsessed with her and wasn't sure why she said that. Basically, everything she was questioned about, she said, was adding to this fantasy she had of murdering and torturing someone. But she would never do anything in reality. It was all a fantasy that she had.
Right.
They discussed the ibuprofen incident. She explained she was talking about ibuprofen to Eddie because I was curious about how much would be dangerous to actually eat, because around that time I was also getting suicidal thoughts. But denied poisoning Brianna. She says that they both went into Asda, her and Brianna, and bought some random tablets. She claims they bought them to see which ones we could both get high on. And when she messaged Eddie saying Brianna is still ill, these tablets I gave her might be slowly killing her, it was just to add to the fantasy.
Right.
That this is happening. It's just this nice little fantasy she has.
Nice.
To her.
Well, yes, right.
In regards to her wanting to kill 2 other boys, she said she had no intent of doing it. It was another fantasy. She was just really annoyed with them. It was revealed that in a conversation with Eddie, she said they could kill the boy on Saturday at 1 p.m. as he was the easiest. Eddie said, Eddie said, could I stab him? And Scarlett replies, sure. I know a hidden spot nobody goes to in Linear Park. And we know what that spot is. But similarly to before, she denies this and said it was part of the fantasy.
The thing is, but it's...
How many times can you say that? Do you know what I mean? Everything's fantasy.
Yeah.
Everything I say is a fantasy.
Well, yeah, firstly, how many times can you say it? And also, like, I don't know, like some people will fantasize about things and they, like, that exists within a fantastical world, if you see what I mean, right? Whereas a lot of what she's fantasizing is crossing over into the real world.
It's
and
possible.
Actions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's within reach, right?
Yeah.
Of
absolutely.
Their capabilities too.
That's exactly kind of what the prosecution says about her that what you said, like a fantasy can be like this kind of wild, kind of extreme thing that, could never really happen. That's why it's a fantasy.
Yeah, right.
Whereas this is very real and possible, and obviously it happened.
Yeah.
They moved on to the day of the murder and the fake drug dealer conversation. She said, I just thought the 3 of us would just hang about Linear Park or maybe Colchester Centre. I just thought that was going to happen that day. She admitted she was sending messages to and from an account she had created and then showed them to Brianna. The 3 of us were just standing around talking, she said. Asked why at one stage she had texted Brianna, girl, where are you? The defendant said at that stage she had walked off. She said when Brianna sent the where are you message, she was further away from the other 2 and could not see them. Asked where she had gone, Scarlett said, I was facing the other way. I was facing towards the bushes. She had gotten bored and wanted to stretch her legs. When she heard screaming and turned around, this is when she saw Eddie stabbing Brianna around 5 times and she fell face down onto the floor. She goes on to say she was in shock. She didn't know what to do. She checked to see if Brianna was breathing and she wasn't. She saw Eddie run, so she ran as well. She admitted to lying to the police as she was trying to protect herself and Eddie at the time. She was worried he was going to hurt her.
Okay.
When it was Eddie's turn, he wasn't there in person. He was on a video link and was typing his answers like I explained earlier. His answers were usually 1 or 2 words. They weren't very conversational.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're typed.
Yeah.
He starts off by denying any wrongdoing and says Scarlett did the stabbing. He only brought the knife with him because Scarlett asked him to, not knowing that she was really going to kill Brianna. He didn't believe she was really going to do it because apparently she always says she's going to kill people and she never did, and she always makes up stories. Eddie goes on to say that he had given Scarlett the knife before they met up with Brianna, who he confirmed he had never met before and had no reason to dislike her and did not care about her being trans. Which
he did.
Yeah.
According to his texts.
Well, exactly. When questioned about Scarlett having his knife, he said he wasn't concerned at all that she had it. He didn't think she was going to do anything to Brianna or that she was going to act out the plan they had discussed. He just thought she was going to keep hold of the knife, which is stupid.
Yeah, very stupid.
Like, just for, like, I'm just going to hold it.
I think, like, I don't know. Kids need to be encouraged to talk to parents and school teachers and stuff if they know about a friend or someone talking about murdering people.
Literally. Like, just an anonymous thing, like,
yeah,
someone's doing this. When Brianna and Scarlett were together, he describes them as being friendly. He walked off to have a wee behind the trees and left them talking. He went behind the trees so he wouldn't be seen, and he also faced away from them. Yeah. Next thing he knows, he hears a rustling sound and a puncturing sound, and then a thud. Once he finished urinating, he came out from the trees and saw Scarlett stabbing Brianna. He stood still until she stopped stabbing, then walked over to Brianna laying on the floor. So there was no urgency.
No.
They didn't say anything. He touched Brianna on her torso, where there was a lot of blood. He said because he wanted to see what happened to her. I mean, he saw what happened to her, so. Scarlett saw people coming and told him to run. Once they had gotten far enough away, Scarlett told him to use his saliva to wipe the blood off his hands. He asked why she stabbed Brianna. She replied, because Brianna had told her to dump her boyfriend and she thought that was unforgivable. Scarlett gave him back the knife and he didn't notice any blood on it. She was acting like not happy or sad. She had a dull, blank tone that was slightly serious. He couldn't explain how he thought he was feeling at that time, which is why he was searching about anxiety and stress. Eddie was asked about his messages about Valentine's Day, the same evening the murder had happened. He explained he was talking about his love interest, how Scarlett told him to ask her out, but he actually said not yet. He needed more information on her before he could. And Scarlett was the one who could give him that information. On the 12th, it was revealed that Scarlett tried to call Eddie, but he rejected the call. This was because he wasn't feeling up for acting normal on the phone with her.
When was that, sorry?
This is on the 12th, so the next day.
After. Yeah.
He said he didn't want her to hear what he sounded like and make her paranoid. He was worried about what she was capable of doing to him.
Yeah.
More messages were revealed discussing what they were going to do with one of the boys they originally wanted to kill. Eddie said in the message, if he eats his own dick, we could call him gay. With Scarlett replying, he is gay. Then Eddie said, so if he fucked his own ass, he could eat his balls instead. Like, I don't know what that means, but he's clearly being like, I don't know, he's saying very aggressive things about this, homophobic like things. I don't know, it's just...
It sounds kind of like they want to mutilate him.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of torturing talk that they had. I just haven't really mentioned a lot of it.
No.
But yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Well, they clearly have issues with people that aren't straight, right?
It seems more that Eddie does.
Yeah, fine.
Not Brianna, sorry. Scarlett is kind of like, well, yeah, he is gay.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I don't know whether, like, she kind of is choosing these people because they are different. I don't know. But, like, he's kind of more the one that's saying these horrible things.
Right.
He finishes by denying wanting to hurt Brianna, stabbing Brianna, or encouraging Scarlett to stab Brianna. Eddie was portrayed by his lawyers as being manipulated by his friend and co-defendant. But while Scarlett was clearly the driving force behind the murder plans, Eddie was her willing executioner, if not her assassin. Mm-hmm. She saved his contact on her phone as Tesco John Wick, which by that she means a cut-price version of the hitman played by Keanu Reeves in the film John Wick, if you haven't seen it. When Scarlett was inviting Eddie to take part in her murder plot, in messages she had said, well, since I'm helping you with the girl that he likes, the name, as if it's kind of like an exchange of services.
Sure.
It's very strange. Now it was time for the closing arguments. Prosecutor Deanne here took the lead, saying that when she opened the case to the jurors at the start of the trial, she said the issue was not whether Brianna was murdered, but whether the defendants participated in the murder. She said it was obvious that Brianna wasn't killed in lawful self-defense, that the injuries inflicted upon her couldn't have been inflicted with anything less than an intent to kill her, or at least to cause her really serious bodily injury. She reminds jurors that both defendants accept being at the scene at the time, but that they both continue to deny that they inflicted any of the injuries that she suffered. She said, quote, each defendant blames the other. It goes without saying that they can't both be telling the truth. But that doesn't mean that you have to choose between them. The prosecution does not have to prove which of the defendants actually wielded the knife, which of them physically inflicted the fatal wounds, or even whether it was one of them or both of them. Provided you are sure that they intentionally participated in the murder in some way, that they played a part in bringing about Brianna's death, intending that she be killed or seriously injured, then they are guilty of murder. In this case, the prosecution say that when you stand back and look at the whole of the evidence, there can be no doubt that both of these defendants played their part in the murder of Brianna Ghey. And when they did so, they intended that she be killed or at least seriously injured. End quote. She goes into a lot more detail breaking down each point both defence teams made, but you kind of get the gist of how they feel.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure.
And it's pretty obvious, I think, as well, what the verdict should be.
Oh, right. Well, yeah. I would say so.
Scarlett's defence closing argument, I thought, was a bit weak. Not going to lie. I think because there's not really a lot to say.
Not much to stand on.
Richard Pratt took the lead and said basically that she is a fantasist and that her fantasies never became a reality, even though they did. There was little to no DNA evidence of Scarlett's found on the knife, and there was little to no blood on her clothing, which I think they were hoping was like a saving grace. And it was all Eddie, because he brought the knife and had an obsession with knives, and his clothes had a fair amount of Brianna's blood on them. And just because Scarlett invited Brianna to the park does not make her guilty of murder. Right. That was kind of the gist. They went a lot more into kind of the fantasy and stuff like that, but I just can't bother to keep going on about her fantasies. It's just bullshit.
No. I mean, at the end of the day, she wrote a titled piece of paper specifically about killing this person. And the plan. And the plan is awfully close to what has actually happened. Mm-hmm.
And it suggested they didn't go through with it all. It's because they got disturbed by the dog walker. By hiding the body, stuff like that.
Why they didn't hide the body.
Because they were interrupted.
They saw someone,
So, that's the only reason why.
Yeah.
Allegedly, So, Richard Littler did Eddie's closing statement. Richard said the difference between the two defendants was fairly remarkable. One unable to speak, the other ready and willing to confidently tread the boards and lie again with the odd laugh and a smirk, he said. He had counted 17 occasions when Scarlett had laughed when she gave her lying account to police.
Yeah.
Richard goes on to say that Scarlett stole Eddie's defence, as Eddie immediately admitted to police that Scarlett had stabbed Brianna. Then Scarlett stole that defence, knowing she was more articulate and confident than Eddie and possibly more persuasive. To explain the blood found on Eddie's clothes, he said there could be only two explanations. One, that Eddie stabbed Brianna, or that he was close enough to Scarlett when she was stabbing Brianna. Not that he checked on her afterwards, because that is kind of what he said. He suggests that Scarlett could have washed her clothes, or the police took the wrong ones that day, which is why there was no blood.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible, isn't it?
I guess. You know, she had a day to wash them, but her parents kind of haven't come out saying that she did that, or that it was weird that she put a wash on. Like, what 15-year-old puts a wash on? Do you know what I mean?
But yeah.
She might have, but I doubt it. Their messages clearly show Scarlett as a controlling manipulator towards Brianna and Eddie. It was in her nature. But Eddie did not know Scarlett was going to act out her fantasy when she asked to see him that day. When he gave her the knife, he didn't believe she was going to do anything with it. Richard concluded, "The truth in this case is Scarlett was not a real friend of Eddie or Brianna. Scarlett was only interested in Scarlett. Scarlett wrote the play, she directed it, she produced it, she stage managed it, and she was always going to be the main character in it and enjoyed the limelight. Eddie was an extra. He did not stab her and did not intentionally participate in that stabbing."
Right.
Which I also think is just... It's true what he's saying. Like, Scarlett, she is the main force behind it. I don't think that can be denied, but just from the messages.
Yeah, yeah.
But he knew exactly what was happening that day.
Yeah.
They planned it. They had a dry run of it.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can't deny it.
But I didn't know. I really didn't know she was going to do it. It's like, even though she's talked about it for months.
Yeah, right.
Stupid.
That's madness.
The trial adjourned, and 4 hours and 40 minutes later, the jury had made a verdict. So not very long.
No, that's not long at all.
On the 21st of December 2023, Scarlett Jenkinson, who is now 16 years old, was found guilty of murder.
Good.
No surprise there, I think.
No.
Eddie Ratcliffe, now 16 years old, was also found guilty of murder. Perfect. So were you expecting that result, do you think?
Yeah.
I mean,
personally,
you knew.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
Were you expecting that result? I think so.
I think arguably, yeah.
How could you not?
I don't. Yeah, exactly. I given the evidence.
Yeah.
You know.
I think Eddie could have gone a bit too way, maybe less time.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or a lesser charge, maybe, just because, I don't know.
Maybe he was a bit more directed, as it were.
Because he wasn't so, like, she was the driving force and he wasn't, but
Isn't there that American law where if you're like a party to a murder, but you know you're not the one that does it, everyone gets convicted of a murder?
That's in certain states. It's not every state.
Yeah.
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 Well, it could be like armed robbery.
Right.
And in certain states, I believe you can get the death penalty for that.
Oh wow. Blimey.
And so yeah, and then if there's a bunch of you,
you will get it.
I believe that. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm not surprised they were both found guilty. Even though we don't specifically know who actually did the stabbing, I'm assuming it was both of them. But I don't know why Scarlett didn't have any blood on her. That's the only thing.
It does seem odd.
That's weird.
It does
seem odd. She must have washed her clothes. But, like, her jacket seems a bit weird.
It does seem odd.
There was just no blood on her, and there wasn't any. So how...
Unless it was
like blood
kind of,
spatter stuff. I don't know.
Maybe, but unless it was what the Eddie's defense lawyer said, like, you know, Scarlett did orchestrate all of this, and maybe she didn't actually have that much involvement with the weapon
in
itself.
The actual attack.
But
she just like created
it and watched it. Yeah,
possibly.
Especially because you know she was aware that Eddie had some fairly dubious thoughts of, the LGBT community. You know, so
Knew he was kind of willing to participate.
Yeah, or at least, had anger placed in that direction.
So, something I haven't mentioned was that due to the defendants' ages, in the UK we tend to not publicly name children when they have allegedly committed a crime, and even sometimes after they've been convicted of the crime. Meaning, we didn't know their first or last name or what they look like. And that was the case for this case.
Right. Yeah.
This is a decision made by the judge, case per case. They hadn't been named throughout this entire process. They were only referred to as Girl X and Boy Y throughout all the newspaper articles, the court documents, etc. But the day after the defendants were found guilty, the judge made the decision that at sentencing, she would publicly name them for the world to see. I didn't want to stick with the Girl X, Boy Y thing throughout explaining the case, as it would have been really confusing and you wouldn't have been able to get the same effect, I don't think. But wanted to mention it now, as it was a pretty huge thing that they were essentially named and shamed and will forever be known for this case. The sentencing date was decided for the 2nd of February 2024, so just last week. Before the sentencing date, Scarlett had a change of story. She admitted to stabbing Brianna, that she found it exciting and arousing when she was planning it.
Oh, wow.
Also, officers found something interesting and chilling in the secure unit she was being held in. Another notebook with another kill list written inside it. There were 3 names written on it, and there were staff members at the secure unit.
Christ.
So whether this girl goes on to kill again, do you know what I mean? We'll see, I guess. We'll find out.
Well,
but
from some of the descriptions, she sounds like a psychopath.
Yeah, well, she wasn't diagnosed with it. She had that dissocial.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah,
maybe when she gets older, maybe she's reassessed. I don't know, but
maybe.
After a long couple of months, February the 2nd finally came around. The judge, Mrs. Justice Yip, began her sentencing.
Yip.
Yeah, I thought it was a funny surname. She acknowledged Scarlett's drive to kill, that her fantasies leaked into reality, and whilst Eddie has autism, that didn't impact his decision in taking part in this crime and the lead up to it. Yes, Scarlett was a driving force throughout, but Eddie consistently encouraged Scarlett with her fantasies and dark thoughts. Most importantly, she addressed Eddie's language around Brianna and determined it to be transphobic and dehumanizing. He displayed hostility towards her because she was transgender, and from looking through all of the evidence, she was satisfied his diagnosis did not explain the way he referred to Brianna.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So the way that he was thinking wasn't a form of his disorders. He was hateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scarlett received life with a minimum of 22 years in prison, and Eddie received 20 years in prison. So
they'll get out. Is that right? Say that again. What?
So Scarlett received life.
Yeah.
With a minimum term of 20 years. So she has to serve at least 22 years before the possibility of parole.
Right, yeah, understood.
So she'll only be 38.
No, 38?
She's 16, yeah.
16? Oh, God,
16
yeah.
and 22.
So right, yeah,
she'll only be 38 years old when she possibly gets out of prison.
Particularly old.
But I have a feeling she probably won't get out then.
Well, if she's making more kill lists, I fucking shouldn't be let out, that's for fucking sure.
And Eddie received 20 years. He has to spend 20 years in prison, but he's not. There's not a parole situation. He will get out after 20 years.
Right.
So he'll be 36.
Right. No doubt it will be earlier. I don't think many criminals actually serve their full term.
Good behaviour. Senior Crown Prosecutor Nicola Wynne Williams of CPS, Mersey, Cheshire's Complex Casework Unit, wowzers,
Yeah.
said, quote, This sentencing hearing concludes one of the most disturbing cases that the Crown Prosecution Service has had to deal with. At just 16, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe are convicted killers, responsible for the brutal murder of a vulnerable young girl who thought they were her friends. They have been given a life term of imprisonment and have shown no remorse. The planning, violence, and the age of the killers is beyond belief. The two appear to have had a deadly influence on each other and turned what may have started out as a dark fantasy about murder into a reality. The messages between the two provided a terrifying insight into the warped desires and fantasies of the two defendants. However, they also provided us with the motivation behind the attack, the plans, and then the attempts to cover it up. Today's sentence reflects the brutality of the two killers' heartless crime, and while it cannot erase the pain of Brianna's loss, we hope it brings some closure. The Crown Prosecution Service would again like to thank Brianna's family for the courage and dignity they have shown throughout the proceedings, and our thoughts and sympathies remain with them at this difficult time. So since the sentencing, Esther Ghey, which is Brianna's mum, is now part of a campaign to create a lasting legacy for her daughter. She has already launched a local campaign in Warrington, which has raised £50,000 to deliver mindfulness training in schools in the area. Which is kind of like not what you were saying, but like, you know, something in schools needs to happen, doesn't it?
There needs to be some kind of alert-based system where either kids can kind of report other kids or something, just to, if it's something that serious, right? You know.
I wonder if anyone else apart from them two knew that they were having these conversations.
Well,
like,
that's the only
how
thing, isn't
open
it?
were they? I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie,
Not
he had 3 followers on Instagram, so I don't think he's talking to anyone. But I don't know about Scarlett.
No. Well, yeah. Was she talking to her boyfriend about
Yeah.
murder and killing and these?
I mean, he must have been interviewed and gone through that whole thing, but got cleared.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. You would have thought. But
There's like zero. It's literally like she had a boyfriend. That's it.
Yeah, sure.
No mention.
But yeah. Anyway.
She is now backing a nationwide campaign alongside Warrington North MP Charlotte Nichols, which is calling on government to fund mindfulness programs in every school in England. It has since been discussed in Westminster Hall, with Esther Ghey attending. Now, I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, I saw this.
Yes.
And somehow... Oh, God, carry on.
But our Prime Minister... I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of it all, but our Prime Minister made a joke regarding trans people when speaking to the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, and his stance on it, when Brianna Ghey's mother was there.
So just to put facts onto this, her mother wasn't actually in the chamber when the comment was made. She did attend the chamber. She was in it later, but she wasn't there when the actual comment was made. But that doesn't excuse
matter.
it at all. No, absolutely not. No. But just
in the same week that the sentencing happened,
yeah, absolutely,
it's just unacceptable.
But just all I'm doing there is just making sure it's factual, I guess.
I hate them all. I hate our government and our Prime Minister. End of story. So let's just finish. I hate them. They're disgusting.
Yeah, they are disgusting.
I hate them all. Anyway, let's finish the case talking about Brianna. She was described as sassy, beautiful, kind, courageous, and authentically herself. She was loved fiercely by her family and everyone who knew her. She was very, very outgoing, said Esther, a very high energy, funny, quick-witted child. Yes, she was having troubles with her mental health, anxiety and eating disorder, but she was strong. And her taking that first step and getting a bus by herself was something she never thought would happen. She was so proud of her daughter for being able to do that. An online friend called Rochelle describes Brianna as a sister. And she loved gaming, Roblox and Minecraft, and her favourite colour was obviously pink. Obviously because she was often decked out in it on her now deleted TikTok account. She loved miniskirts and makeup. Another online friend, Vivian, said she had a brutal, honest sense of humour and was unabashedly herself. She was so proud of being trans she absolutely loved it. She was ultra feminine. She was so beautiful, and she just didn't really care what people thought. She would be happy to know the LGBTQ plus community have really come in and supported her family throughout this time, and are outraged with how this happened, and are determined to make change in order for this to not happen again. But that's it. That's the case for today. A tragic, tragic one that kind of has gripped the UK, hasn't it, for the past year?
Well, I mean, I don't know about the past year, but definitely the past few weeks.
Yeah.
I think probably because it's been like there's been
the sentencing.
Sentencing, sorry.
Yeah.
Has been happening. I think that's probably why.
Well, that's probably why it's coming to your radar.
Yes, yeah, true.
Whereas it was on mine before then.
Yeah, sure. No.
Yeah.
But
obviously the anniversary
yeah.
is coming up. The
Yeah.
1 year anniversary.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
Hard to kind of, don't know, put into words really. It's just awful. It's just 3 teenagers have just ruined, well, 2 of them have ruined their lives and 1 of them's lost their life. It's just horrific, isn't it? It just shouldn't be happening, but it's happening so much all over the world. Just teenagers you just hear every day are just dying or killing each other.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
Well, yeah.
It's like, what the fuck is going on? Social media, I think that's a massive cause behind it.
I think it's a bit of a tool that facilitates it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's I think there is elements within it that probably drive some of this. Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying for this case.
No, sure.
Social media, I don't think that's really got a lot to do with it.
No.
But outside other shit that's going on. But
yeah, sure.
But yeah, well, let's just hope Esther gets some movement going with her mindfulness campaign, even if fucking what's his tits doesn't care about it. I mean, he doesn't.
Who? Sunak?
Yeah, apparently he thinks what they've got at the moment's fine. They don't need to improve anything, and he's not apologising for the joke either. So he's a massive twat.
Yeah, he's a waste man.
And yeah, let's just hope she does, at least in her area, the surrounding area, she gets this going, just for Brianna's memory, and that would just be a lovely thing to do, even if our Prime Minister doesn't care about it. So,
well, it's definitely something that should be.
It should be done.
Like all of these things probably existed in some form or way, and then they were all taken away. A lot of things were cut in the last 10 years or so, 15 years.
Well, there wasn't mindfulness because
not
school.
necessarily, but there was more support, and people have been stripped of support due to.
I don't have the right support with LGBTQ plus as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
it would be like archaic support if there is support.
No, well, because there's no because there hasn't been as much representation as maybe there is today.
Yeah.
Then there wouldn't have been, because people wouldn't have. It just wouldn't have been on the public radar, would it, to support and protect people in these groups necessarily anyway, or not as much.
I don't know if the mindfulness thing is for people that need to learn to be nicer, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, learn to be mindful of others. They need to learn it for themselves to be kinder to others, what Scarlett and Eddie needed to learn, basically.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if that's why she's doing it more so.
Right. Well,
I don't know. I don't know. That's an assumption.
Sure, but that would still be good. Still be nice.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the case of Brianna Ghey. Let us know what you think in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.